Hi everybody, welcome to the Classical Odyssey. My name is Ruxandra, and if you're new here, I highly recommend checking my introduction video where I talk about the channel and a little bit about myself. You can find the link in the description below. From now on, I plan to post a narrated video every Monday and sketch at the same time, so we can catch two birds with one stone. Today I would like to talk about the importance of understanding the term self-taught. What does it mean to be a self-taught artist? What does it mean to be a successful self-taught artist? And use one of my favorite sketching techniques, which is sketching with the fountain pen. Let me introduce you first to my tools. This is one of my favorite fountain pens. It's a TWSBI. And the reason why I like using a fountain pen is that you can practice both pen and ink drawing and watercolor painting at the same time. Once you put down the lines, fountain pen ink is water soluble most of the times. You can use a water brush and dilute the ink and create watercolor effects that are really interesting to see. And if you have an interesting ink such as this one, this is my favorite ink. This is a Robert Oster ink in Graphite. This is a deep grayish green that reveals, when diluted with water, an interesting palette of colors. It has some pink hues in it that are quite beautiful. You don't need to use this particular ink or any particular ink at all. You just need to use a water-soluble ink, or you can also try a watercolor pencil. This works just as well. Okay, let's get started. Wish me luck. It's going to be very interesting sketching live and talking at the same time, and I really admire all the artists who are able to do so. It's very difficult to concentrate on what you're doing and knowing that there's an audience behind you, listening to you as well, not only watching you. Right now I'm accessing my Akelteki database. If you don't know about the Akelteki horses, I highly recommend you Google that. That's one of my favorite breeds. I have a lot of friends in the, let's say, Akelteki community. It's one of the rarest breeds of horses, and you see them in most of my paintings. I'm on Pinterest, and I'll choose a more difficult pose, and I'll show it to you in a second. I use my iPad next to me, and I try to put it parallel with my painting, and this is my reference photo. Unfortunately, I can't put it closer to the video because the iPad needs to charge. So let's go straight into it. It is important when you do the sketching to try to imagine that you're using a pencil and that every line you do is not a permanent mistake, because that's the #1 fear people have when using a fountain pen. So you could just find your way through the shapes, imagine the muscles. There's many ways to sketch, many ways to find the rhythm. I'm not good at explaining these things, but there's a plethora of names on the internet that you can check, and you can learn so much from them. The reason why I wanted to talk about why it is important to understand what it means to be a self-taught artist is because I've noticed that many people consider that as something that you do, let's say in scientific terms, like an isolated, you act like an isolated system. In fact, being a successful artist implies studying the same things, understanding the same things at your own pace. So a self-taught artist that is successful is an educated artist. It doesn't need to be an artist, it can be anything in life. You basically use the same tools that somebody would use normally when studying art in an institution in order to get to the same goal. In my case, I'm trying to really apply the principles of traditional art. I would say academic art. I just feel not worthy of even coming close to being an academic artist, but the principles still apply. I mean, I want to learn more about the theory of perspective, light and shadow, and master anatomy, especially in regards to the subjects that I draw most, which is horses. Now, the process might take a while because there's also the camera that obstructs my movement. By the way, if you're interested to see something in the future videos, if you want me to talk about a specific thing or sketch something, I was thinking about doing a video just about horse anatomy. Please let me know in the comment section. Also, when you plan to study art yourself, alone, it is important to try your best not to be isolated. And by isolated, I mean not having contact with anybody from the art world. And this is not a luxury as it used to be anymore because of the internet. You have access to so many amazing artists out there. And you can just be part of a Facebook group, or you can watch videos. I don't mean that you necessarily need to interact directly with the people, but that you're in contact with an art community. A good example is, if you know the channel Prokopenko, he's an incredibly talented artist, even more so a highly talented teacher. This is how I first got into drawing seriously. As I mentioned, I almost abandoned the idea of art until a couple of years ago. I discovered the YouTube channel Prokopenko, and I really decided to go into art again, learn anatomy properly, and look for resources. And as I said, you need to build up a curriculum yourself. You need to be informed what you want to achieve. You have to know your goals, and you have to make up a plan. In my case, the plan was to go again through the basics, which is learning hatching, cross-hatching, learning about light and shadow, learning about what is called the terminator line, where the darkest darks play in, and semitones and light, semitones and the darkness, and then move on to study anatomy, just straight into it. Understand the structure of living things, learn human anatomy and horse anatomy. This is something that you probably have to learn for the rest of your life. So once you have a plan, it's much easier to know where to look for resources. And one of my favorite resources that helped me tremendously in the past year, even in the past year and a half, even though I haven't used it that much, was New Masters Academy. That is an online platform where you can study various art courses. And you can also interact with world-class artists. That was an amazing experience. I learned so much from that platform that I feel that I've redeemed all the years that I've lost by not learning. And by very little time, I mean sometimes I would invest a couple of hours a month in it. But that just shows how important information is. Once you found all these things, one of the most important things that you should never neglect, you can basically start with that and continue with that thing only and grow enormously, is to study the masters. That also implies that you should know how to choose the masters. But since you're on the Classical Odyssey on my channel, I really recommend 19th century, early 20th century realism, especially Russian art. That's my greatest influence. And I would like to talk about sources of inspiration in my future videos, because they can be so many. It can be anything. It doesn't need to be art. And I'm just roughly putting the hatching in. It doesn't really matter how it looks, just as long as it's not too chaotic. Also, I'm sorry if you hear sounds. My neighbors are listening to music quite loudly. There's nothing I can do about it. It's nice music though. It's happy music. It's a rather difficult pose. One of my main problems is that my drawings are incredibly stiff. One artist that I learned a lot from is Glenn Vilppu. He also teaches at New Masters Academy. And his approach was most foreign to me. I didn't really understand. He was very loose in his lines when he was sketching. He didn't seem to care much about the proportions as he cared about volumes and shapes and rhythms, which is very, very important. And I don't know if I tried this technique with fountain pen drawing myself or I saw him doing it the first time, I don't remember. But he does this a lot and he highly recommends it. It's also very practical. You can travel with just a fountain pen and a water brush and do sketches on the go. Okay. Marking the shadow of the ear, the temple bone. It's really beautiful. Because of the video, obviously, and because of the time, I'm not really trying to be anatomically correct. And remember, this is just a sketch. In case you're wondering, I'm using a very smooth Bristol paper. I would normally use a much cheaper paper, as long as it doesn't feather too much. It doesn't absorb the ink too much. It's really okay. Doesn't matter which paper you use. I made the leg a little bit too long, but that's okay now. And another thing that's very, very important is to create daily habits. From my experience, you require most energy and most time in the beginning, when you actually have to lay your foundations. That's when you require most energy, most intellect, most time, and most consistency. From there, it's just building dexterity and adding knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the easier it is to gain even more knowledge. That's a general principle. It's not just in art, it's in everything. Science. And it's very important to obviously accept the idea that everything in life requires work. Work is a basic human condition. We should never neglect it. We should embrace it and make use of it. Now, sometimes losing my perspective because I have to be quite far away from the drawing because of the camera. So this leg looks very much like a stick. It shouldn't look like that. You should have more volume. One thing that I liked about Glenn Vilppu's approach, I'll probably write his name in the description below, is that he was almost like searching the volumes while drawing. He was making up cylinders and squares and basic geometric shapes. Very loosely, almost like calculating everything while drawing. Let's just make some earth, soil dislocated in the air. I think we can move on to the water brush. I also have to emphasize the importance of having a tissue or a paper next by, because you have to control the amount of water you want to put on the paper. And also you're gonna see in a moment, something that I discovered with this ink is that when you put water on the paper and you blot it with the tissue, it reveals this gorgeous pink hue. It's really, really pretty. And you can obviously add lots of layers. Come and emphasize the ear a little bit more. Identifying and homogenizing the shadow areas is very important as a first step in sketching or making a finished piece. In order to achieve great realism in art and also make it artistic, you have to know how to simplify things, and that's one of the hardest things. hardest things to learn and to master. Okay. I can't talk much right now, I think, in this phase, because I have to be very fast and concentrate. I really don't want to mess this video up. It's not gonna be one of my best sketches, obviously, but at least we can feel motivated to try the same and have lots of fun with it. I think we're gonna come later with more hatching. It's a really beautiful ink. There's so many options with fountain pen inks. It's amazing. I think the market is very rich today. You have fountain pen inks with sheen, with glitter. That's not something I necessarily prefer, but it's very interesting to look at. Yeah, don't forget to clean the tip of your brush so you don't smudge too much of the ink in places where you don't want it to be. Now, this like kind of lacks volume, but it's really okay for now. I'm still trying to find the ideal camera angle, and I appreciate so much the artists that you have on YouTube they seem to be painting so freely. Also, knowing that you're observed is something that you really need to get used to, at least in my case. It really changes your approach. Yeah, when I talked about daily habits, it doesn't need to be a very long time, and I know that probably some of you would like to study art or pursue it anyways, but have different careers and have so many responsibilities. Without lacking a sense of reality or realism, and I would like to emphasize actually the importance of really being determined to achieve something. And being humble, learning art is something that will take your entire lifetime. It does not have a finish line. And it's something that you should really enjoy for the sake of it. And once you enjoy it for the sake of it, that's when you grow most. There's always going to be lessons to learn, milestones, goals. And the more you learn it, the more you know what you need to learn. I really believe that if you plan 10 to 15 minutes every day to do something very small, for instance, you can study the skeleton, you can study the bones, you can study, let's say, the scapula. You plan it. I want to study this for the next 3 days, and I invest 15 minutes. It can be very early in the morning. It might mean that you have to wake up 5 minutes earlier than your usual wake up time, or spend 15 minutes before bedtime. But the mindset is very, very important. I recently received an ad on my Kindle. I read a lot on my Kindle especially for my PhD thesis. There's so much to read, and I want to protect my eyes as much as possible and keep my eyes away from the screen. So I use an ebook, and there was this ad for a book. I don't remember the title, but it was a quote by Constantin Brâncuș. He's considered the father of modern art. He was a Romanian sculptor. He always wanted to find the essence of things, to put it in his own words. He has some really interesting abstract sculptures that are meant to catch the essence of flight, for instance. And he said that things are not difficult to make. What is difficult is putting ourselves in the right mindset to make them. And that's very, very true. I think 90% of the things we ought to do, we don't do them because we either fear them or we simply don't want to be bothered to do them. Have a lot of patience with yourself, and never look at other people in terms of how much time it takes you to learn something. Be grateful for the fact that you can enjoy art. Be grateful for the fact that you can enjoy drawing, and everything will work out. I think it looks quite nice as a sketch. I might just insist a little bit with darkening some areas. I was so surprised to see so many invested art teachers online. There's so much right now, and there's so much for free. You can learn so much for free without paying anything. If you know what to learn, you can really do it without much investment at all, without any investment at all sometimes. I hope I made sense in this video. I'm sorry if I was at times not that coherent. I considered the idea of filming first and then doing a voiceover, but for some reason it takes a long time. It's much easier if I do it spontaneously. And I feel like I can cover a lot more. I would also like to do some live drawings. As I said, I don't feel qualified to teach you art per se. I'm very happy to show you my techniques and share what I've learned about learning. And that's, I think, something that I've gained a lot of insight in how to learn. When you do other things, when you have a family, you have a different career, it's important to use the moments. It's important to use your free time as much as possible. I think our session will soon be over, and I really hope this was helpful. If you have any suggestions about future videos, if you have any comments on today's video, I'll be more than happy to read them. About daily habits, about other things, I would be more than happy to talk in detail in the next Monday sessions. By the way, I don't know exactly how to name them. The Monday video series. I should find a name for them. I would love to hear your feedback. Okay, let's go with the second wash. I really like to see that pink being revealed. Almost done. I'll be happy to know if some of you are watching this and drawing at the same time. That would be very nice. Okay, drawing a little bit, have some ground underneath. Yeah, I'll homogenize this area because it should be all dark. Use the cast shadow of the head, cast shadow of the ear. More pink, and a little bit more of the tail. Be nice to insist a little bit more on the hair to make it a little bit more dynamic. I think for a quick demo, it was okay. It's just meant to inspire you and offer you a new idea of how you can sketch and practice two things at once. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, if you didn't find it terrible, please give it a like. It really helps promote the video on YouTube. And subscribe and maybe share with a friend. See you next time. Bye.